Good evening, everyone. It's Congresswoman Debbie Dingle from Michigan. And I sure wish that I could be with you live tonight to celebrate all of the hard work, the efforts, the tireless fighting that you've gotten and done to improve our long-term care system in this country. And we're getting close. We're almost through at the finish line. As I recorded this message, I just walked back from the floor of the House, where we passed the historic Build Back Better Act. With this historic bill, we are making such an important investment in our seniors and with people for disabilities. And at the same time, we're supporting our care workers and telling them how much they matter and helping them get the recognition and pay them the value that they have to so many families across the country. Right now, home care isn't an option for too many people. And yet it's the foundation of our economy because caregiving makes all other work possible. No one can do their job if their loved ones aren't cared for. And too many people want to be able, they just need a little help, or they need help taking their medicine or bathing or bath, or just that helping hand. But they want to stay in their own home and in the community that they've known and loved for their whole life. Too many people for too long haven't had the option of staying in their own home. Our system is tilted toward institutional care. Caregiving is one of the most important jobs we have in our society. So I'm here today standing with you to say that care work is essential. And we're going to get this system fixed. I've been a caregiver, and I've seen how broken the long-term care system is firsthand. I was lucky enough to be able to have Don at home, to be able to afford the support that I needed. But so many people aren't as lucky as I was. And that's why this funding and this program is so important. More people should be able to stay in their own home without sitting on a waiting list or balancing being a family caregiver or keeping food on the table. We need this bill to get across the finish line into the president's desk. You know, I also know I needed help. I couldn't do it by myself. I found one caregiver that became and remains a member of our family. But I met too many caregivers that were working 2, 3 jobs, weren't getting benefits, and were still living below the poverty line. We need your help to address this, to get this done, to get it over the finish line. And that's why you need to urge the Senate to get this bill done, to make sure we keep caregiving in there, though I know we're going to. So we just need you to keep up the great work. Thank you to Caring Across Generations, the ARC, 9 to 5, and Be a Hero for your leadership, and to all of the home community-based care services advocates. We couldn't be where we are without you, and we won't get it done without you. Thank you for the work that you do every single day. It makes a world of difference to so many people and families across the country. I simply can't thank you enough. And with you, we're going to help a lot of people that just need a helping hand. Take care, and I'm going to celebrate with you when the president signs it.
Hello and welcome to the Caring Across Generations mass call. Caring Across Generations is a national movement of families, caregivers, people with disabilities, and aging Americans working to transform the way care is given, received, and valued in our country. I am Jerry Brown, a resident of Clarkston, Georgia, which is just east of Atlanta. I am a mother of 6 children, and I have been a full-time caregiver to my father since 2017. For the last 171 days, we have been without consistent caregiver support. As a Black woman, I didn't consider myself a family caregiver because it's so customary in the Black community for us to take care of our disabled loved ones and elders. In 2018, my father's health drastically declined, and someone else had to say to me, "Oh, so you're his caregiver." And I paused and said, "Oh, am I?" And in that moment of discovery and realization, I became aware of the family caregiver community and the common challenges that we all face. Society sees caring for a loved one as a family obligation and not something that government has to acknowledge or support. And we are here to shift that paradigm. Caregiving affects us all in some way, because either you've experienced someone close to you being cared for, you currently are caring for someone, or you may be in the future being cared for. None of us are getting younger. And to advocate for caregivers means you are really advocating for yourself, either now or in the future. We've come together tonight to celebrate the work of Caring Across Generations and our partners. And thanks to all the work, Build Back Better has passed the House. Now is the time to make sure the Senate delivers so that we can start building the care infrastructure our families need. For folks who may not know, the Build Back Better framework is a historic piece of legislation, and when it comes into law, will provide major investments in childcare, affordable housing, healthcare, paid family medical leave, and response to the climate crisis. As it relates to home and community-based services, it is the most transformative investment in home care since Medicaid began authorizing these services. Tonight, we will hear from Senator Bob Casey and Representative Susan Wilde. We'll be a part of a conversation between family caregivers on the front lines of these issues and hear from our partners at Hand in Hand, Working Families Party, and 9 to 5 Working Women. I have the honor of introducing Senator Bob Casey of Pennsylvania. Many of you know him from being a Senate sponsor of the Better Care, Better Jobs Act, the bill which makes home and community-based services available to more older adults and people with disabilities. Senator Casey is a longtime champion of children, working families, seniors, and people with disabilities. He chairs the Senate's Special Committee on Aging and serves on other key committees overseeing health, education, labor, and finance. He's been a loyal friend to the Caring Across Generations campaign. Senator Casey, thank you for your leadership and welcome.
Well, Jerry, thanks so much for your introduction. And I know you have a full agenda tonight, so I'm going to try to keep within my time, which should be less than 5 minutes, unless you tell me it's even less than that. But I do want to thank you for your leadership, but also for bringing your personal story to this debate and to these issues. And I think that's what's going to win the day for us. People bringing not just their interest in a policy, but their own stories, their own challenges, bringing stories about fellow caregivers who are struggling for the same breakthrough that this bill represents, the Build Back Better legislation. But I wanted to start by thanking you, Jerry, and thanking Caring Across Generations. I want to thank the ARC. I want to thank 9 to 5. I want to thank Be a Hero. And I also want to thank the National Domestic Workers Alliance, all of you together for not just this call, but I think more importantly, for what you've done all these months, and in many cases for many years, making the case for caregiving, that caregiving can't wait. We can't be told, oh, we'll do it next year or the year after or 10 years from now. We got to do it now. That means in the United States Senate. The House has already done its work. They passed the bill. Now it's up to us in the month of December, not next February or next April. We got to do it now in the month of December. So I'd ask you, as much as you might need a little bit of break for Thanksgiving, as soon as Thanksgiving's over, start up again and keep making the case to every member of the United States Senate, especially, and unfortunately, it's only one party, so you only have to work on 50 of us, not all 100. But I ask you to keep making the case because we got to keep going all the way through, run all the way through the tape until the bill is passed and it's sent to President Biden for his signature. Now, what is this about? You've made reference to it in your discussions here tonight. I think one of the best summations of what this is about came from a young man in a wheelchair up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, a couple weeks ago. I just happened to be up there in Scranton with Joe Biden. It happens to be the town where he was born in, and it's the town I was born in, and I still live. It's actually where I am now. I was saying up there because I think of myself in Washington. But I'm in the same town tonight. And on that night when President Biden was in town, I wanted to make sure that he was connecting directly with people who were affected by one of the big policies, at least in Build Back Better, the policy relating to home and community-based services for seniors and for people with disabilities. And I wanted him to hear directly from someone who was impacted by that good caregiving. So just before the event was wrapping up and the president had to go back to Washington, I leaned over to Brandon Kingsmore, and I said, Brandon, please tell the president what you've told me about the care that Lynn, who was standing right behind him, right behind his wheelchair, Lynn Widener, provides to you. Without even taking a breath, Brandon said, among other things, he said, I would not be able to live the life that I have if it weren't for her work, her caregiving. And then he went on to talk about what her care means to him. And then he broadened the conversation to talk about all caregivers. And here's what Brandon said. He said, quote, they, meaning caregivers, they give us a substantial life, unquote, a substantial life. That's a pretty good summation of the work that all of you do. If you're a caregiver or if you're advocating on behalf of caregivers, you literally allow people to live their lives with dignity, to live their lives free of some of the pain and agony they would have otherwise. You allow them to live a life that is as full as possible because of the skill and the professionalism you bring to your work as caregivers. So that work has never been more important, but it's about time we lifted up that work and affirmed it and validated that work in public policy. Now, there have been people in Washington for years saying, well, we don't have to invest in that. We don't have to invest in caregiving. We don't have to worry about people getting care in their home, or we're not going to make an investment in childcare. We're not going to make an investment in all kinds of care for seniors, people with disabilities, children. Finally, the interests of caregivers and those who are the beneficiaries of that care are being lifted up in Washington. And that we're finally saying it's about time that very powerful, wealthy people and wealthy corporations paid more to lift up and affirm that caregiving. So that's what the Build Back Better legislation is all about. It's about helping to give people a substantial life, a life that is made better because someone has quality, affordable childcare, a life that is made better because that child is the subject of our federal investment in early learning, pre-kindergarten education for all 3 and 4-year-olds. To give someone a substantial life who needs care in their home because they're a senior and they need skilled care. That's in the interest of giving them a substantial life. The caregiving that's provided to people with disabilities in a home or in a community that allows that person a little bit of help in the morning so they can get off to work and lead a full life, a substantial life, because even with that disability and even with more than one disability, they can still work if we give them that help in the morning or help later in their day. So for all these reasons, we've got to make sure that we not just pass legislation as we did as you saw just a few weeks ago, that is about roads and bridges and physical infrastructure. For a lot of other people, they might need a bridge to work to get their car across the bridge, or the bus that they ride on, the public transportation that they ride on across the bridge to get them to work. They may need other bridges. And too often in the grip of the pandemic, and we hope in its aftermath very soon, but in the whole pandemic, the people who had the biggest challenge getting to work were women. So when we say Build Back Better is about Americans, it's a lot of it is focused on helping women who have never been helped before, helping her get to work. So for her bridge to work might also be the bridge of quality, affordable childcare. Her bridge to work might be the assurance in knowing that her son or her daughter is in an early learning program that is at a very high quality, and that she's going to be, they're going to be getting help with early learning and the early care and early learning that every child needs. Her bridge to work might also be the peace of mind that comes with knowing that her mother or her dad or some loved one is getting skilled care in their home, or is getting quality care in a long-term care setting. So her bridge to work has to be about more than just an infrastructure bill. Her bridge to work and her bridge to a brighter future has to be about what's in Build Back Better. There's no question that we made a lot of progress in the rescue plan in March on a number of fronts. One of them was the child tax credit, the biggest tax cut for working and middle-class families we've ever seen. Because you know what? Raising children is not only difficult, it's expensive. So now in Pennsylvania, for example, because of the rescue plan, we've got 2.2 million children who are benefiting from that child tax credit, and their families are benefiting. And you know what? Because that family can pay for food since the month of July, or can pay for school activities, or pay for rent, or maybe the mortgage, whatever it is, because that family is lifted up, and even maybe lifted up out of poverty, as about 40+% of them are being lifted, that same lifting in the short run is going to benefit that child in the long run. We want the best skilled workers in the world. You can't have that if a child doesn't have early care and learning and doesn't have the benefits that so many Americans have been able to take for granted. So Build Back Better is one of the best ways for us to invest in that child and his or her family, in their mom and their dad, and in their future. But we got to make sure that we get it done. So I want to thank you for all the work that you're doing to make sure that we focus intensively on getting this Build Back Better legislation done. You also have to get voting rights done. That's a whole other discussion. But that's what we're trying to do in December. Pass Build Back Better and pass the voting rights bill. And that won't be enough, but that'll be a lot to get done in the month of December. So thank you for your fight. Thank you for your passion and your willingness to dedicate so much of your time, so much of your lives to being advocates for those whom you may not even know. People all across this country, tens and tens of millions of people who will benefit from this legislation that you made possible because of you're willing to walk that long journey to passage of this legislation. So thank you. God bless your work. We're going to get it done in December. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Casey, so much for your valuable message. And as a Pittsburgher whose family hails from Wilkes-Barre, thank you again for your support and your leadership, not just in Pennsylvania, but across the nation. It is exciting to see how much we've achieved over the last few months, and with the momentum we've built, we're ready to take the key steps ahead of us to assure that Build Back Better becomes law. My name is David Kimmelman. I'm the legislative manager here at Caring Across Generations in the Advocacy Department. We've been following this legislative process for quite a while now, very closely, and I'm just going to give you a brief update on the political landscape that we've seen and that we have ahead. So with that, I'm going to share my screen here. And as of course, my technical issues, let's try that one more time. Here we are. Okay. So what we know of the Build Back Better Act, a top line of $1.75 trillion, and this is a big piece, once in a generation type of spending and investments in our economy, in our families. We know that we have investments here in childcare, universal pre-K for all 3 and 4 year olds, expanding the child tax credit, as Senator Casey had mentioned, such an important investment in our families and to ensure that all Americans are able to raise their children with the support and need that they can. A really wonderful provision that we got included in the game was paid family and medical leave. This would help about 18.5 million people to care for themselves and loved ones who do not currently have paid leave. And this was something that was really controversial, and through the work of advocates and folks across the nation calling their members of Congress and their senators, got included at the end to make sure that such an important provision and something that would benefit millions and millions of Americans got moved forward. So we had continued investments in affordable care, improvements for immigration, huge investments in combating climate change and in energy to deal with the climate crisis in ways that we have never seen before. Housing investments to keep about 300,000 folks with vouchers for those with the lowest income. We have equitable higher education in the bill to increase the maximum Pell Grant, to expand eligibility for various programs, and invest in institutions that serve Black, Indigenous, Latino, and Asian American and Pacific Islander students, to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to go to college and that it is affordable. Getting ahead of myself with the slides here, I apologize. Moving forward onto what we are here for, to talk about home care and Build Back Better. We have historic investments in home and community-based services, $150 billion. This is increases in access to and improve the quality of Medicaid HCBS, increases in pay and training and career pathways for service workers. We make permanent the funding for the Money Follows the Person program, which is a great way to ensure that as we move forward, states are able to transition individuals out of institutions and into their homes and into their communities, to make sure that everyone is able to get the care that they need and deserve, and that families are able to provide for their loved ones and for folks in need. It would make the investments in Build Back Better would make permanent protections against spousal impoverishment for individuals whose partners receive Medicaid, to ensure that even if those most in need, everyone as a family is covered here, right? There are, in addition to the HCBS, there's investments in $150 million to support the National Family Caregiver Support Program. We have $100 billion over 10 years to support direct care workforce through renewable grants. This is truly a once in a generation, the largest investment in care that we have ever seen. And we are excited to keep this moving forward. So that's where we are. And now where do we go? So as Senator Casey mentioned, the House just recently passed the Build Back Better Act, and it moves now to the Senate. The Senate, I'm personally a House favorite here. The Senate has a somewhat arcane process, and they go through a reconciliation process that we're now going through called a bird bath, named after the late Senator Byrd, to ensure that all budget measures are not going off on all sorts of policy directions that are not relevant to the budget process, but that we maintain the budget process that this bill is intended for. So you'll see them go through that process over the coming weeks. There will be a voter-rama, this opportunity to make amendments to the bill. Again, this is the arduous process of the Senate to get us moving forward. We expect some, though not too many, of these amendments, and the Senate will pass this bill. And that is why we're here today, to celebrate the gains that we have gotten and to ensure that the Senate does pass this bill. And we hope that this will take place around mid-December. We're expecting to see this move forward. The Senate has the debt ceiling to ensure the federal government is open and funded moving forward. There's the appropriations process, so it's got a couple things to move along the way, but the Senate will take this up, and we expect the Senate to take this bill forward. Should there be changes, which we expect there probably will be some, this bill then will have to go back to the House, because to get to the president's desk, you need one version of the bill agreed on by both chambers, the Senate and the House, to move forward. So this bill will likely end up passing this. We're fighting for it to pass the Senate, and we will then see it move back to the House for one final passage, identical legislation, and the House is committed to doing this as well. And then we would see this bill, once passed again by the Senate and again by the House, to the president's desk and signed into law. So we have come a long way over many, many months fighting for all of these investments. We have had Infrastructure Week to no end, and we are past the infrastructure bill, and it's now time to pass Build Back Better Act and invest in the care economy and all of these important programs. So that is where we have come, and this is where we are, and now where we are going, and we will pass Build Back Better. So with that, I will turn it over to my colleague.
Yes, and we have an excellent surprise for you, and I won't take up too much time. I'll bring her right onto the stage. Representative Susan Wilde, it's nice to have you, and we'll turn it right over to you for some remarks.
I hope you can all hear me. I'm Representative Susan Wilde, and I am so glad to be joining this effort to emphasize the necessity of funding the caregiving economy and building a future that takes care of people, including and perhaps especially those who take care of us. That is why I was so proud to vote for the Build Back Better Act last Friday morning, because this legislation takes huge leaps to build a more resilient middle class and invest in 21st century that is made right here in America. Part of this effort to lift all boats and ensure we treat workers with dignity by raising their wages is to finally address the glaring deficiencies in how we treat home care workers. Senator Casey mentioned Brendan and Lynn, who I've come to know from many events across the district. And I'm so proud to stand with them and to speak out for the caregiving economy. I really love the idea of caring across generations, because I think it gets to the core of what I mean when I talk about a caregiving economy, because it's not just pre-K or childcare, although those are obviously critical. It's also elder care and people who live with disabilities, who need home and community-based services. The need for this service can and does impact families at every stage of life. This issue is really personal for me. When my mother got sick, it was only because of tireless home care workers who stood at her bedside, providing essential care so that my family and I could rest easy knowing that she had the help and resources she needed around her. Watching a parent or a loved one suffer is hard enough, but those home care workers made it just a little easier for me and my family, knowing that she had a team of hardworking caregivers by her side through her sickness. Home care workers have been on the front lines this last year, caring for our most vulnerable populations, putting themselves and their families at risk. They did this while earning near poverty wages. In fact, home care workers are 3 times as likely to be living at or near the poverty line, with many of them struggling to afford their own health care while they provide essential services for elderly and disabled Americans. This obviously is completely unacceptable, and I stand with them in their call for a long overdue raise, improved worker benefits, and the opportunity to organize and collectively bargain. This isn't just the right thing to do. It's the smart thing to do. As our nation grows older, the need for this critical workforce will only grow. So common sense investments in home care workers now will create jobs while also providing the necessary support that an aging population is going to require. For too long, home and community-based care workers have been underpaid and undervalued. That ends with the Build Back Better Act, which takes the first strides to fund a caregiving economy that ensures seniors and people with disabilities can live with dignity, and that the workers who keep our country going are afforded the wages they deserve. Together, we are going to get the Build Back Better Act passed, signed into law, and we will shape a future of rights and dignity and higher wages for all. Thank you so much, everyone.
Excellent. Now we'll turn it straight over to an amazing conversation featuring 2 of our fellows, Crystal Hughes and Alex Key. They'll tell us a little bit about their caregiving journey, and they'll also invite another advocate, Jojo Swett of Common Defense, to tap into the conversation as well. So without further ado, let's welcome the Caregiving Corner Takeover.
Hi. Hello. My name is Alexandra Key, and my pronouns are she, her. I am a 29-year-old millennial primary caretaker, caring for my mother with disability and health issues, including early onset dementia. I am also the primary caregiver for myself, disabled by multiple sclerosis, and living daily with symptoms brought upon by 6 chronic illnesses. I take care of her and myself in my childhood home in Los Angeles, California, with my father. Crystal, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Crystal Hughes. My pronouns are her and she, and I'm calling from New York City. I was a caregiver for my son. His name was Pugh. He had multiple everything. He had a heart transplant, he had a kidney transplant, and I was his caregiver. And I took care of him from birth until he passed away last year.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jojo Swett. I'm a United States Marine Corps Service disabled veteran. My pronouns are she, her. My husband is my primary caretaker, and I've also worked in the advocacy space in supporting military veteran caregiving families. Thank you for having me.
I'll begin talking about my care story. It's true what they say, caretaking is the hardest job in the world, especially when you're sick and doing it alone. The paid leave that the Build Back Better bill provides would have meant I didn't have to do this on my own. My father, who worked full-time to support both his chronically ill spouse and child, could have not only become my co-primary caretaker, alleviating stress-inducing illness on my part, he would have received much needed monetary resources to help provide care for his family. But most importantly, he would have had the non-renewable resource of time with his spouse as her memory actively fades. Crystal, can you please share a bit about your experience caretaking for your son?
Well, my son, when he was first born, he was diagnosed with multiple diagnoses and even academically. I basically was a single parent, single mother. I took care of him by myself. I had no help whatsoever. Any resources or anything that I had to do, I had to go look online and find these resources. This Build Back Better bill would have helped me in a better way where I would have been able to have more help. Now you have Medicaid coordinators, you have respite services, but being that I'm the parent, they look at me as the sole caretaker. So I never had a nurse. I never had any help. I did everything on my own. This bill would have definitely helped me take a lot of stress off of having to deal with all of these things, especially being stressed out all the time. And he passed away last year. So I'm happy that I was there for him. I'm happy that I did everything that I did. I don't regret anything that I did. But this bill would have helped me. I feel like crying, but I'm not. But thank you so much. And I'll pass it to you, Jojo.
The military veteran caregiver experience has changed a lot in the post 9/11 era. Now we're seeing even younger people from the military who are requiring full-time caregiver services. And the only people that they have to turn to, like myself, to provide those services are their spouse. And many of us are also raising children. And so these are a lot of stressors that, can overwhelm the military veteran family. I was 28 when I became disabled, and I had 3 children at the time under the age of 10. And so that reliance on my husband came at great sacrifice to him and his ability to go to work and continue and be the breadwinner, because he would have to take pause and spend long times at home to be able to care for myself and our children. And so that really set our family back, with things that have happened in the economy, which is, again, added stress where you don't have support, you're stressed about your financial means, and you're worried about your children's future. And so something like the Build Back Better, providing resources and funding to alleviate those stresses and having support mechanisms for families like mine would mean the world. And in this space, I've worked with a lot of these families who have service members who rely on their spouse for everything. And so we just need to be able to not only provide respite service for the caregiver so that they have longevity, because that takes a toll on them as well. And then it precludes them from taking part in activities that they may also enjoy in their life. And so we need to make sure that not only are we providing the ability to take care of those who need caregiving, but taking care of those who sacrifice that time and provide the caregiving.
Statistically, women of color are the leaders in care work, as well as the personal caregivers for their families. The Build Back Better bill addresses longstanding systemic racism and inequality by providing wage and labor protections for our caregivers and the disabled. As a Black woman whom is both disabled and a caretaker, seeing these issues addressed, advanced, and spoken about in the media because of the efforts made to pass this bill has been refreshing and radical. Being on the precipice of seeing some of these words and theories transformed into actions and law would be revolutionary.
Oh, me next? Okay, thank you. I also think that zip codes have a lot to do with the type of care that you get. And then being a single parent, like I said, once again, I feel that a lot of things are not addressed with single parents taking care of sick children, because we are the parents. So they look at us as the nurse, the teacher, they look at us as everything. I think that this bill needs to also include single mothers who have to take care of ailing kids. My son had two diseases that I had to take care of. Plus I had a younger daughter. So I just think that we should also be included. Yes, I care about the elderly. I care about other people that have to take care of their parents. But I also want for the future single mothers to not have to go through what I went through. I want them to be able to thrive and be able to work and take care of their other children, but also have adequate care to take care of their loved one and their child.
The Build Back Better can finally fill the largest gaps in support that we desperately need in the caregiving community, especially to include the families that have been affected by the forever wars post 9/11. Those areas include mental health care, respite care, like I spoke of before, basic health care. Not every veteran has access to the Department of Veterans Affairs health care benefits. There's gaps in religious support, and there's lots of gaps in the financial support and allowing these families to thrive in our current economy. Like many of even our congressmen and senators have said, many of these communities are working below the poverty line. And so the Build Back Better alleviates all of this comprehensively and allows everybody to have their dignity back and a quality of life that's meaningful.
Thank you so much, Jojo, Alex, and Crystal. I just want to give you a standing ovation for what you do every single day to care for yourselves and your loved ones and to lead in this movement for care. My name is Ai-jen Poo, and I'm the Executive Director of Caring Across Generations and the National Domestic Workers Alliance. And I also want to thank Congresswoman Wilde for being a champion of Build Back Better and for giving us so much hope tonight. And I really want to make sure that we keep her words and Senator Casey's words with us as we move Build Back Better over the finish line in the Senate. We're incredibly lucky to have champions who reflect the strength and power of our growing movement for care. And I also just want to shout out our Caring Across Generations Care Fellows for your incredible work and guiding us through an awesome conversation so far. So to prepare us for the work we still have to do to deliver Build Back Better, we've put together an exciting panel of experts and leaders to speak to you. Our speakers in this panel include the amazing Nalini Stamp, who is National Organizing Director of the Working Families Party. She's going to speak about care infrastructure. We also have with us Allison Glass, who is the Policy and Training Manager at 9 to 5 Georgia, who will speak with us about paid family and medical leave. And we also have Russell Rawlings, a member of Hand in Hand, the Domestic Employers Network, who will talk about the significance of funding the home and community-based service program through Build Back Better. Let's start with you, my friend Nalini. When this campaign got started, we began talking about care as infrastructure and about how we needed to invest in care programs, care policy, and the workforce the way we think about investing in bridges and broadband because of how essential it is, just like other forms of infrastructure, to our economy functioning and society functioning. And our opponents really tried to undermine that narrative, really rejecting the idea that care is infrastructure. What do you think has enabled us to come this far when it comes to care infrastructure policies and to really prevail in Build Back Better?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, Ai-jen, and Caring Across Generations. It's really lovely to be here. And congratulations for everybody who've been putting so much work to get this across the finish line, and we're almost there. I think that, a lot of this has to do with the fact that we all faced a global pandemic, and that on top of folks having to care for our elderly, for our children, and thinking about other ways. But also we had a mass a moment where a lot of folks are dealing with long haul COVID. People are dealing with the effects of the pandemic. And so I think that it allowed people to ask the question, who cares for us? Who is actually caring for our communities, our elderly, our children, and everyone who is there. And I think that people just started to say that, like, this is something we actually need, that is a public good. I remember I had 2 family members die in the same week in the beginning of the pandemic while I had COVID. And I remember, I remember so many people saying, how could this happen? How could our hospitals be so filled? How could our nursing homes in New York spread like wildfire and not have the care that they need? And I just remember so many people just asking that really simple question: who is going to care for us? Who's going to care for our communities? And I feel like that has enabled people to advocate for themselves and say, we actually need this investment. It is an investment in our communities, our families, and our health for the future. And so I think that was a really big motivating factor. A lot of people who had to deal with things they never had to deal with before. And I the last thing I'll say too is, I've dealt with 2, my grandfather who is now passed, who was in an elderly care facility, and my grandmother who just finally got 7 days a week care. And it takes such a long time. And I think my family didn't realize how much they needed care workers in their life, and needed care workers to care for my abuela, because we were just going through the motions and going through life. And when life slows everyone down and makes us take a look at what's going on, they were able to actually become advocates for themselves and get my grandmother the seven days a week care that she actually needs, in-home care. So I do actually think it's about a bunch of people who finally, due to unfortunate circumstances, but actually decided to be advocates for ourselves and to say, now is the time to see care as an infrastructure element, human infrastructure for all our communities.
That's right, Nalini. Thank you so much. So much of what you said resonates so powerfully. I want to bring Allison in to talk about paid family and medical leave, which is a critical pillar of the care agenda. We're all celebrating getting paid leave put back into the Build Back Better bill in the House, and seeing the bill pass with it intact a few weeks ago after a lot of back and forth. Tell us about what happened, what it took to achieve that victory.
Yeah, absolutely. First, thank you so much for having me here. It is truly, truly an honor to be amongst such incredible organizers and advocates on this mass call. So my name is Allison Glass. I am the Policy and Training Manager with 9 to 5 Georgia. So we're the Georgia chapter of 9 to 5 National Association of Working Women, an almost 50-year-old member-based nonprofit organization that supports community-led solutions to advancing economic, gender, and racial justice through grassroots organizing, political advocacy, and public education. We work towards a future where all women and their families can live and thrive in an economically and racially just world. So I am also a mother to 3 children, the first of which was born literally weeks before I graduated from college when I was 22. I was working in the gig economy to get by before and after my son's birth, and I had no weeks of paid leave. Fast forward 8 years later, and my second and third kids were born while I was working for a tiny but mighty social justice organization in Memphis. The organization didn't even have a leave policy, but really worked together to cobble together some budget, so that I could take a few weeks of leave after both of my daughters were born. I'm also a caregiver to my beloved mother, who has been diagnosed with MS for many, many years, has other medical issues. Shortly after starting at 9 to 5, my mom had back surgery, and I needed to take leave to be with her during an extended hospital stay and then to be at home with her while she recovered. And I didn't have enough accrued sick days yet because I was new. But I fortunately was able to use 9to5's family leave bank that other staff had donated into to cover the weeks that I took off. So, I know that I am incredibly privileged to have had these experiences in my life, and am dedicated to ensuring that all workers, no matter where you work, who your family consists of, and what challenges you're facing, are able to have these same rights and more. I also really want to bring to this conversation some other 9to5 Georgia members, like Aisha, whose mom is a nurse and doesn't have paid leave to take care of her grandfather who has Alzheimer's. Nor can she help take care of her aunts and uncles who helped to raise her, who are now elderly because their family can't afford for her mom to not get paid. I'm thinking of our member Zoe, whose mom could never take time off when her kids were sick. And so all caretaking responsibilities fell to Zoe, who looked after their younger siblings, leaving them wishing that they had a childhood when they could just be a kid and not have those caretaking responsibilities. Another member, Felicia, says, and I quote, "This should be our right to care for ourselves and our families. We should not have to choose or fear what we are going to lose, that we're going to lose our jobs or risk our health. I do not understand why it's a debate amongst elected officials who are supposed to care about the people they are working for." So, our members' experiences show clearly why paid leave is so popular across the country and across demographics, because almost every single person is going to have a health issue of their own or of someone that they love, that they need to attend to. So many of our family members need us at different times, and we should be able to take care of ourselves and those we love without risking our economic stability. So yes, this has been a long journey, and something that advocates have been fighting so incredibly hard for, to make sure that paid leave is a part of this Build Back Better Act, this recovery package, because we know that there cannot be a recovery without paid leave as a part of the provision. It really did. It is taking a huge effort, which really points to so many of the challenges that we're really facing, where, we're all a part of an economy that far too often only values, corporations and power and making more money at anyone and really anything's expense. So we have to be really honest about that, and how it really pits so many of our communities, especially communities of color, puts them in impossible situations. So once that the package was introduced and we were like, oh my gosh, paid leave isn't in it, advocates absolutely went out full force. And people who have never actually been advocates before in their lives, right? They started calling their lawmakers. They started posting on their stories on social media, because it was just unfathomable that after this, especially a global pandemic, that paid leave would not be a part of this recovery package. So thankfully, in this moment, we are making progress. Having our country's first national paid leave program would be an absolute huge win for all of us. And we're grateful to each and every advocate who made so much noise a few weeks ago, and all of the lawmakers who really have been champions to make sure that paid leave is a part of this recovery package. We know that the work isn't over. We know that we're going to have to continue speaking out and ensuring that every single senator does the right thing, that they work for the people who elected them and demonstrate that they care about us, as our member Felicia so eloquently said, by passing the Build Back Better Act with the strongest and most equitable paid leave policies.
Thank you so much, Allison. I want to bring Russell into the conversation to talk about home and community-based services and the incredible coalition between care workers, disability rights and justice organizations, older adults, family caregivers, all of us coming together behind this part of the Build Back Better agenda. It's a pretty unprecedented and pretty new, strong, growing, powerful alliance. Talk to us about the significance of this alliance and what might the power of this coalition make possible for all of us in the future.
Thanks, Aijen. And while certainly some of these alliances may appear new, actually, it's quite the opposite. Many of them have been strong relationships for quite some time. I was recently reminded of the Capitol Crawl event that occurred in March of 1990, where people with disabilities crawled, left behind their physical supports, their mobility devices like my own. I have a power wheelchair, and crawled up the steps of the Capitol. But that wouldn't have been possible without the caregivers that were there, helping them and assisting them. My name is Russell Rawlings. My pronouns are he and him. I'm a member of Hand in Hand, the Domestic Employers Network. I'm also the statewide community organizer at California Foundation for Independent Living Centers and a member of California's Long-Term Services and Supports, or LTSS for All Coalition. I'm a white male, 44 years old. I have cerebral palsy, and for my entire life, I've required the care of others to meet my activities of daily living, doing the things that we all must do in this world. My caregivers are my lifeline to the world. It's because of my caregivers, provided by California's In-Home Supportive Services Program, a Medicaid-funded program, that I'm able to be here with you all today. It is because of the work of my caregivers that I am able to be successfully employed, and this is not something that most of my fellow disabled community members are able to enjoy. Instead, most of us, and indeed even my own journey, included struggling in extreme sub-poverty. For many people with disabilities, we are forced to become self-advocates simply to fight for our ability to exist in the communities of our choice independently. For far too many of my disabled sisters and brothers, this is a task that is demoralizing. Far too many experience daily stress, wondering how and even if their care needs are going to be met. We should not have to worry that we will be abandoned simply because our caregivers are also not being cared for. In large part, many struggle to find the care they need simply because caregivers are not receiving a dignified wage for their extremely valuable work. Instead, they are struggling in sub-poverty right alongside us, working hard, trying to find ways to care for themselves and their families. Passing the Build Back Better package, which includes $150 billion for home and community-based services, funding for programs like the IHSS program that I rely on, is crucial. It will help fill in care gaps, such as the one in California that leaves approximately 8,031 Californians who would qualify for HCBS programs through Medicaid waiting on the care they need. These are 8,031 people who now may get the support they need to live in their homes and communities. Build Back Better will help us fill in the care gaps in these important programs. This funding is absolutely necessary. Care work is absolutely infrastructure, and an investment in care means an investment in our collective health. And we shouldn't just be filling in gaps either. 150 billion, while down from what we've been fighting for, will help our country dream bigger about the future of home and community-based services. Let's be honest, we should not be required to spend our lives as disabled people in poverty just because we need a little help with tasks in order to live independently in our community. This opens up the possibility for us to dream big and dream bold. As one of our vibrant disability community leaders, Leah Lakshmi Pitsena Samarasena, has stated, we should be able to shift our ideas of access and care, whether it's disability or childcare or economic access, from an individual chore to a collective responsibility that's maybe even deeply joyful. And if you haven't checked out her book, Care Work, Dreaming of Disability Justice, you absolutely should. This historic Build Back Better now waiting on Senate approval, its last hurdle, tells both the disability community that it is valued and the care work community that it is deeply cherished, and that we can begin to dream of that collective responsibility together and to find joy in our communities where everyone can feel supported in their access and their dreams. Here in California, we are already dreaming big. The LTSS for All Coalition seeks to build a bold, completely inclusive long-term supports and services system bolstered by home and community-based services funding programs to ensure that disabled Californians of every age and older adults have access to the support systems, including care and many more, when traditional programs simply aren't meeting their needs. Again, filling in the gaps that too many people of color, women, non-binary, disabled, and other people are living at the intersections of these difficult struggles for mere existence. So let's bring them that joy. Let's invest in ourselves. Let's invest in our communities. Let's dream of more than just independence, but an interdependence that is full of love and joy. Build Back Better should start today.
Yes. Joy and dreams and love and interdependence. Thank you so much, Russell. We are going to, with the power of this coalition, dream big, dream bold. This working across movements has gotten us here, and I have no doubt it will power us across the finish line. Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Allison and Nalini. Let's keep going. Let's get this done. I'm going to now introduce Shantae Wolf, our amazing campaigns director at Caring Across Generations, to close us out.
Thank you so much, Ijen. It's been an amazing conversation. One thing that I also I heard many times tonight, is that a lot of people didn't see caregiving in their life until it was presented in a way that was unique. But it shouldn't be. We live lives, especially in rural areas, that caregiving will fall into our lives, whether we like it or not, either directly from a friend or chosen family, depending on where you fall on the spectrum of, being able to have access to a loving support system. Care infrastructure isn't something that is, over the top. It's honestly the bare minimum. And as a lot of people say, this Build Back Better package is the down payment on a more equitable life for all. So I'm excited that you all joined us tonight, and it's been inspiring to see the work and the real wins that we have accomplished. Many of us have been at that Capitol for hours. Our LTSS coalition had a 24-hour visual weeks ago to let folks know that this is just a stepping stone and we're going to get this done in the Senate. And here's how. In the next few weeks, we have a lot of opportunities to take action and speak out. Caring Across is organizing online and in-person events to help get Build Back Better through the Senate, back through the House once more, and finally on the president's desk. We're preparing for one of them right now, urging families to shoot intergenerational photos or videos during the holiday week. We'll be sharing them in our next advocacy effort featuring grandmothers on December 8th. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be an amazing event. In the meantime, I urge each of you to thank your White House members for their support in writing, by phone, or on social media. Get on TikTok, tweet about it. Let your voices be heard, and just as much as we hold them accountable, let them know that we absolutely thank them for holding the line and getting started on what is a transformational piece of support for all Americans. Let your senators know that you need them to vote for Build Back Better. It's with your voices and your stories that we show how essential care and caregiving is to individuals, families, and communities. Thank you for your advocacy and support. Don't stop now. We are bound for victory, and we'll only be able to do it together. Thank you, and good night.